Welcome back to my budget app series, where I attempt to create a personal finance application from scratch and document the whole process on YouTube. In the last video, we set up a monorepo with a Docker development environment that starts the web client, the server, and the database. In this video, I will be working on the web client. In these first steps, we'll set up the style sheet base by installing a preprocessor, configuring the Tailwind theme, and some other basics. Let's jump into the code and I'll explain more. Alright, we'll now be working on the web client. So I have the monorepo open. And as we set it up last video, I can start all of the containers in the monorepo with Docker Compose up. This starts the database, the client, and the server. And my client is exposed to port 80. So let me open that. We set it up so that both the client and the server code is being watched, and if I save changes, the servers reload and recompile. So now I can start working on my client. I will open that in packages. I will open a second terminal here. My services will be working in one terminal, and I will cd into packages bw web client in another terminal, basically. All right, here's what I have. A basic Tailwind, a basic Next.js setup with TypeScript and Tailwind. We have a Tailwind config, which we'll be working on, but first I want to set up some other basics. This is the README file that I will remove for now. Later I will add a new file. This is the post CSS config. We don't need to change that. We don't need to touch the Next.js config for now. I want to focus on the source. Here I made a small change of camera. I rewrote the home to be an arrow function and removed the bootstrapped Next.js code. It now just has a main tag and the home text note in it. Layout is left largely unchanged. I only rewrote it as an arrow function, but now we will rewrite it further. First of all, this globals file is imported. We have an inter font, which is not the font we'll be using. And this globals file is a CSS file. I want to change it to a SASS file using a preprocessor, which is easy. Let's start with that actually. I will stop the containers. I will install SASS as a dev dependency. This is required by Next.js. It can support the SCSS preprocessor, but you need to install the SASS library as a dev dependency. Now, after I did that, we need to basically reload our container, rebuild the image. There are a couple of options for that. I can just remove the web client as an image from here. To do that, I can just remove the container, remove the image. There was also a Docker command line utility, which allowed the Sweet Compose to invalidate the cache on a service and rebuild it. Okay, we get a syntax error. Of course, now that I renamed this to SASS, I need to rename the import as well. And let's rebuild again. Okay, now we have another error. I needed to also convert this to a valid SASS document. Of course, now the SASS compiler failed. Okay, the container images have been compiled, recompiled, more like. And now the application should be running again. Let me refresh quickly. But this time we have a preprocessor available at our disposal. Now let's rewrite layout. The next step, I'll leave metadata. I'll leave it like this for now, but I'll need it at a later point. This is the default website metadata, so I will change it later. Let's focus on the font. I'll open Figma where the design is. I won't need it for the font specifically because I know the font. It's Lato. We are only using Lato at this point. But I'll need the design for reference as we'll be implementing the colors. For example, in the Tailwind CSS theme. Now, Lato is a Google font. So we can use the excellent Next fonts Google utilities. The good thing is I'm only using a single font, so I'll just import it here. And I need to define its properties. Good thing is TypeScript will prompt us what we need. We definitely need a subset and we need a weight. Lato is not a variable font, I think. Let me see. Weight is expected to be, I guess, an array. Yes, an array of one of these strings, which is the font weights. For now, we'll just import the regular one and we'll import other weights as we need them. We'll definitely need the regular one, at least for these, like the numeric values, have many weights, we have mediums, bolds, etc. But we'll import them as we need them, as I mentioned. As I have only one font, I can just use the Lato class name on the body, and that solves everything I need in terms of fonts. Quite straightforward. Everything will be Lato now. Here I will rewrite the root layout props as a type because I don't like this syntax. Let me remove that. So the root layout props at this point are a read-only type, which contains children. It's an object, basically, and contains children, which is a React node. And I can define this as root layout props. I like this a little bit cleaner, and that is the props typesetting I'll be using as syntax for the rest of my components, and I want to follow a consistent specification throughout the application. Now, in terms of here, I will do props and props children, because this I prefer as well. I don't want to grow this line a lot. And the root layout is kind of ready. Next up, I need to go to globals, and in the base layer, Tailwinds, I'll define the font size, which will be 14. And that's that for now. I don't know if I can define this in a Tailwind config. Maybe I can. I'll see. In a bit, I might remove this completely. Now, the primary job we have is to define the theme right here. And to do that, I will open the Tailwind CSS docs and I'll look for theme theme configuration. So this is the config file. I think I have the complete, default theme. So these are all of the properties. And that's great. I can definitely use that as reference. I can also go through these quick exported properties, which I would likely want to change. So the screens I will not change. They are great. This captures on mobile devices, basically, even larger phones. These are between SM and medium breakpoints. We have basically smaller tablets and very large phones. Between large and medium, we have larger tablets, and here we're talking about small laptops between large and Excel, and Excel and above is regular laptops, modern laptops with high resolutions, and desktops, which is great. My design is at 1440, which is also great because above that, I will scale this layout proportionally with by setting everything to rems, which is already the case with the default Tailwind theme. Almost everything is set to rems, which means that I can scale up the entire layout by basically changing this font size. And above 1440 pixels, with the media query, I can set it to some viewport unit, which would scale the layout proportionally above that. This way, on very large resolution screens with small scaling, the layout would look great, which is what I want to get. Now, let me see. Colors I need to change. So this config happens in the Tailwind config under theme. Let's open that theme. There were some defaults here by Next.js, which I removed. Now let's take a look at our colors right here. I will open this like that. There we go. Now for this, I'll start with black and white. Let's remove the defaults. I will not keep using primary and secondary. I would specify the color name and the number for scalability like the grays are. These were used for the design. I changed my mind later. Now I will implement the grayscale starting from gray 1 up to gray 14, basically. All right, and one more. Now we need to take a look at the colors. This will take some time, so I'll speed that up in the video. All right, I added the grayscale. Next up, we will go with bool, and I'll call that bool1. The only colors that will not have a number suffix are white and black, of course. This is the primary bool. Let's add that. We have a green. And the chart's colors, I will also add as they are basically color names. All right, just a final touch, the one suffix on all of these. So let me check for final syntax errors. I think every hexadecimal code is correct except this one. And I would want to add another bool color for the hover state of the bool actually. So I haven't prepared that, but I will use just a darker shade like this. I picked it just now. I want it because I want to use it immediately for the button component hover state, but it can have other uses as well. It's just a darker bool. So I don't want to couple a color with its meaning. That's the whole point. Besides that, we should be good to go with colors. So let me resize these windows to full screen now. All right, I have this small window open right here. And this one as well, which I don't need. Now, next up, let's see what else we have available. Font family, I don't need these utils really, to be fair, because my font family is set from the class in my layout to Lato, so I don't need to set fonts ever, have a single font. And then we have extend. This basically would add additional values. Now I want to take a look at the default theme because if there are, let me zoom that. If there are values that are not RAM based, I might want to change some of them. Although they are sensible, like boor is a value you might not want to control with relative units ever. And I think most of these I will not change, but let me still check out what's happening. Border width I also don't want to be relative, and I like that. Box shadow is another value which I prefer to stay with absolute values. So most of the Tailwind defaults are very sensible. Here in border radius though, let me check. So we have a 14 pixel base font size, and one of my most used border radiuses is 10. These elements, basically of the cards, the buttons, the inputs. So I want that. And that is 714 rems, which is unlikely to be a value in the Tailwind config. Yes, as I suspected. Now we have small, medium, large, extra large, etc. But we also have a default. So we need to kind of redefine this, in my opinion. If I don't want to have a single border radius option, of course, but I need to have this value right here or something very close to it. And let me just paste it so that I can reference it. It's basically 714. I'll keep 3-digit precision for relative values. And around that, we can build. Currently, the closest one is border XL. So what I would do is change that so that I would have a 10 even pixels border radius, at least with font size 14. Do I need to change the default? That's an interesting question. If I change the default, it would be a little bit weird because currently this 0.25 rounded RAM doesn't really exist. So I'll leave it like that. Yes. And the phone needs to be exactly like so. Actually, I want to see if I can use the extend syntax replace border radius instead of completely redefining it. So extend is after theme, right? Yes. And I just want this property. Okay, copy the whole thing. Extend. So as I said, I want only to overwrite this property. Okay. Well, we can test that now. Let me see. Did it recompile? Yes, it did. To test that, I can just add something in the page. Diff with class name, like, let me just complete the diff first so that I get better IntelliSense. Whatever, P4 and just some of the grays. Let me see. Gray 9, and I'll say rounded. XL. Okay. Let's see what we have. 0.75. Okay, so extend cannot overwrite. It can only extend existing values. Now, if I do that though, I suspect all of the others would disappear. Yeah, I have overridden it. But now if I use just rounded or rounded medium, for example, will it work correctly? Not at all. So after all, I need to redefine the whole object to override a single value. Not so cool, but the other option is if there is a structure here. Oh, actually extend was not outside of theme. That might have been my mistake. Let me see. This might fix it. What do we have right now? Rounded, rounded medium. Let me change that back. Okay, so extend works as I expected. I'm able to override a single property. My mistake was I wrongly saw that extend is outside of the theme object, which doesn't really make sense because it extends the theme object. Kind of. Yeah, let's see the other properties. Border width, I'll leave like that. Brightness, colors, I already dealt with. Columns, not interested in these at all. But they are relative, so that's good. Drop shadows are absolute. This is what I want. By the way, if you're confused by absolute, I mean absolute values in terms of pixels, not rems. Now we have flex bases. These are not interesting. Unopinionated utilities completely. Font sizes are interesting. Up to, do I have the available font sizes in these sizings? I do, because I've taken into consideration this and I built my entire typography around somewhat even rems. I won't check this one by one because I know how I built them. All of these sizes should be available in this Tailwind font size array because I've thought about it beforehand. Okay. Although line heights might not be correct. Yeah, let's check these after all. Yeah. Heading 1. Is this the most efficient way to check them out? Really? Okay. Heading 1, 28, and auto line height. What does that even mean? 34 is the automatic? I'm guessing, but I don't want that. It's not that important at this stage. This is 2 rem basically. So the 2 rem. Oh, we don't have a 2 rem font size. That will be a problem. I might need to redefine this as well. Okay. All right. I thought they have O-even increments with a step of 0.25 rem, which is wrong. They have a different font size structure. All right. I need to completely change that. Let's do so right here. I think I will redefine it. That would work better. So the base font size is 1 rem, 1.5 rem of line height. I need a 2 rem H1. Let's start with H4 should be 1 rem. Oh no, H5. Sorry. H5 is 1 rem. H4 17.5, which is 1.25 rem. So let's configure that. This will be large. All right. I will comment out all lines which are not final. Okay. So this I'll leave at 1.5 line height for now. Although my headings, yeah, 1.5 is it's fine in terms of line height. This doesn't mean headings specifically. We can reset headings to a small line height anywhere. Now let's go forward. The H3 21, which is basically 1.5 RAM. So let me uncomment Excel breakpoint. The good thing is we'll have less of these, which I like. What else do we have? Oh, they also define line height as absolute values. That is interesting. I so don't like this. I don't mean absolute values, but they define line height as rem values instead of relative to the font size. That is an interesting concept indeed. I'll update them last. Let's now do the font sizes. 24.5 H2, which is 175. Yeah, I was pretty consistent with this. And H1 is 28, which is 2. Here we go. And that's 3 times Excel. And that is pretty much the largest font size we'll need, at least by my design so far. We can always extend this later. And we have smaller ones. And H6 is 12. So that would be 857. Okay, no XS right now. I remove that. So a simpler font size array. In terms of line height, I will move that to normal units, 1.5. And here we'll go down to 1.25 on the larger units. And the largest units will have a 1.1. This will not be used for body text ever. It's just too large. In fact, this can have a line height of 1 comfortably. This can also have a line height of 1.1. So I'm comfortable making this with a lower line height number. They will be harder to read if they are used for a large block of text, but that will never happen. They're just too large. Okay, so font sizes are ready. Let's look at weights. These are completely fine. Pretty standard, and they correlate with Lato. I don't have a lot of gradients. All spans, these are all standard. Unopinionated heights are great. Yeah, these are animations, line heights. I think I have sufficient line heights. Letter spacings are good as well. And opacity order. Yeah, pretty much all of these seem to work very well. I want to look, yeah, spacing. So that will be interesting. I think I won't change this. They are very even and there are a lot of them. I'll just use the closest ones. Still, I want to make sure I have the basics. The basics are, I have, let me look at the design because I changed them there. So I have a, let me use another measuring tool, like a section. I have a 30 pixel spacing on a lot of places, and that's also my gutter, my gaps everywhere. I also have frequently, I think 30 or 20 pixels padding. So I want to make sure I have 20 and 30 or very close values within 1 pixel to them. 30 is 2.14, which I won't have for sure. Yeah, really dislike that. 2.25 is available and 2 RAM is available. 2.25 would be a little bit too large, I suspect. 31.5, no, it's not that large. 2.25 is completely fine. Even 2 RAM would be, yeah, it's 28. So 2.25 is within an acceptable range. I can modify it, have pixel perfect design. That wouldn't be any kind of issue for me. But I like the even number more as a value in my generated CSS, not as it won't be an even number as the final gap, which will happen in the render design in terms of a pixel value. But that's okay. It will be unnecessary for one pixel to add an entire block of code here. After all, now let's go further. Strokes, text decoration thickness. Yeah, these are not that critical. Oh, Z index values. I really dislike these 10s. Yeah. I'll change these to up to 3. I don't need more. Ever. I won't need even these, most likely. The good thing about Tailwind is, notice, I don't use all of my grays. It'll tree shake. Actually, tree shake is not the correct term, because it wouldn't even insert the directives for the styles. It won't define them in CSS if I don't use them. So that just gives me options in the code base. It will not render a larger CSS file. It will not generate a larger style sheet, which is great in terms of performance and options in best of both worlds, really. Okay, so with that, my theme configuration is pretty much complete. Now, I'll stop the video here because the next step is to implement components. These components, to be more specific, right here in the components library, starting with buttons, icons, tables, etc., which would take a significant amount of time. And I didn't want to make a single video about implementing components and the Tailwind theme, as they are very separate things and also take a significant amount of time. We'll pick up next video with the components implementation, and after we have that, we'll start working on the layouts themselves. With this, I'll wrap today's video. If you enjoy the content and the series, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when another video is released. Take care.